Josh Jacobs, one of the most explosive running backs we've ever seen, and he came out of nowhere. But today, I'm just here to explain to y'all his story. So what's good, y'all? It's Matt OVG, and we are back with another story video, man. If y'all new to my channel, hit that subscribe button, leave a like for more story videos like this. I do basketball, football, any videos like this. Just leave a like for more. And hey man, without further ado, let's get straight into the video. Those of you that clicked on this video, I assume that y'all all know that yes, Josh Jacobs played and had a successful career at Alabama and is now heading to the NFL, but things didn't always look that bright for Josh Jacobs. Jacobs had an unimaginable and very rough childhood, being homeless most of his life up until he got to Alabama. So let's go back to where things started. Josh Jacobs grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he was only in 4th grade when his parents split up. He then made the decision to live with his dad full time, where he spent most of his nights sleeping on relative couches and sleeping in his dad's vehicle. Struggling to find places to sleep almost every night, Jacobs would shower after football practice, and his father would drive around looking for a spot to park at night so they could sleep safely. And a little side note to throw in there, his father always slept with a gun on his chest just to protect his son. Jacobs and his father had to sleep in his dad's Suburban due to his apartment not being ready. They slept in the Suburban every night for almost 2 weeks until the apartment was finally ready. Then finally, when the apartment was ready, they finally moved in. Then a couple months later, their dad won custody of all 3 of his brothers and his sisters, and they moved in with them. So just when things were starting to look pretty good for them, it didn't last long. Almost right after all the kids moved in, Josh Jacobs' dad lost his job. So basically for the next 2 years, Jacobs and his father and all of the siblings went from motel to motel, living only out of their backpacks and eating only ramen noodles and white rice. Think about that, for 2 whole years.
I've lived in cars, I've moved hotels, never really had a stable home until probably like sophomore year high school.
Money was always tight, but when it got really tight, Josh Jacobs' dad wouldn't even eat. Despite all the frustration and the family's desperation, Jacobs' father never turned to drug dealing. Although it would have been a really easy way to make money and no one would have said anything about it, he wanted to do right by his kids. Also to throw in there, Josh Jacobs did say that his father said he would never do it for 2 reasons. One, it was too risky. If he got arrested or sent to jail, there would be nobody, and I mean nobody, to take care of us kids, and he might lose us, and that was out of the question. And 2, he said that the easy way out usually isn't the right way out. He said it's hard work and perseverance that gets rewarded, not shortcuts. And just like his father, that's what Jacobs did. He worked hard and ran even harder for his dad and for his siblings. Although he did it for his dad, he did it for his brother and sister, it wasn't just for them. It's because he loved the game of football. After those 2 years of really struggling, Jacobs' father landed a steady job and was able to get a house. Money was still really tight, but they no longer were moving from motel to motel, which is great. Josh Jacobs was nothing short of a star in high school on the football field. He put up insane numbers, so insane that in fact the local newspaper refused to print them because they didn't believe his high school coach. Now, I just want y'all to think about that. His numbers were so godly that when his high school coach told the newspaper, they wouldn't put them in there because he thought they was making them up. He missed a good chunk of his junior year, and although missing a lot of time on the field, he still put up over 1,000 rushing yards and 13 touchdowns. That's in limited action. But going into his senior season, and even during his senior season, Jacobs still had 0 scholarship offers and 0 stars on the recruiting websites. Now this is for one game, this isn't made up. He put up 455 yards and 6 touchdowns just on 22 carries in a game covered by the local paper, and he still received no interest. Almost 500 yards and 6 touchdowns only on 22 carries, and still no colleges came calling. Insane. But then out of nowhere, a man named G. Smith from Texas called Jacobs' father asking to help get his son recruiting interest. The man had came across Josh Jacobs' highlight film and he wanted to help. He saw the potential in Josh Jacobs and he knew this guy was underrated. So what the man did was he had Josh Jacobs create a Twitter account to post his highlights to, and he took care of the rest. Then boom, out of nowhere, the offers started rolling in. Josh Jacobs even went on to say that as soon as he made his Twitter account and posted the highlights, he started getting 10 to 12 calls a day.
Well, a guy named Coach G. Smith out of Texas hit me up like randomly. And I didn't have like any social media or anything like that. He was like, posting highlights on Twitter. And he was like, I'm gonna help you get recruited. And 2 days after I did that, like I was getting called like 10 calls a day or something like that. So it was crazy.
Then when Nick Saban and his staff came across his highlight tape, he was just puzzled. The player that Nick Saban saw on the highlight tape was clearly good enough to play at Alabama according to Nick Saban himself. But what puzzled and confused Nick Saban was why Jacobs didn't have any other major offers from any other major programs. There are really three main reasons why Josh Jacobs really wasn't looked at as a highly rated recruit or even looked at as one at all. One being perhaps that his high school program was out of sight on the recruiting trail. Another, when he got hurt his junior season, that really put him behind too. And number three, his school really didn't know much and his family didn't know much about sending players to camps and really sending out their highlight tapes. But hey, none of that mattered. Once he started getting his name out there his senior year, it just took off from there. Josh Jacobs was basically the Wildcat quarterback as a senior, and he finished with 2,704 rushing yards and 31 touchdowns. He averaged on each carry more than 15 yards per attempt. His performance landed him offers from Division II schools all over, then Division I New Mexico State, Wyoming, and a higher profile Division I school eventually offered, which felt like more of a breakthrough at the time. TCU even recruited him, but they wanted him as a cornerback. Even though he expressed he wanted to play running back, the coach told him that he can find 1,000 players just like him. To jumpstart all of his big interests, Jacobs posted his senior highlights, and that's when Missouri caught on and offered him a scholarship, and that just led to many more. In mid-January in 2016, after Nick Saban watched his highlights, Burton Burns, Alabama's longtime running backs coach, traveled to McLean, where Josh Jacobs was, and watched Jacobs play basketball. Now, I know what y'all are thinking, play basketball? But yes, he saw everything he needed to see. Jacobs had the physicality, skills, and personality Alabama covers. With Nick Saban knocking at the door, it was a wrap. Everyone knew where Josh Jacobs was going, including himself. Josh Jacobs said that Alabama's known for, putting dudes in the NFL, but at the time, he didn't really think about the NFL. He was just thinking about getting a free scholarship and a free education. And also to throw in there, he just wanted to play against the best of the best at the next level. And things started off great for him at Alabama. As a true freshman, Jacobs had emerged as an immediate option for Nick Saban. Because of his great ability to catch and run, he played meaningful snaps and finished with 567 rushing yards and 156 receiving yards just as a true freshman. Now, that may not sound like a lot, and I know what y'all are saying, it really isn't a lot, but think about this. He had to split carries with the previous top running back in each of the last two recruiting classes. Those guys being no other than Damian Harris and Najee Harris, so he's not playing in a weak backfield. Now, also, y'all probably know, in most programs, Jacobs would be the feature back and probably would have been the star at a different program. But then the next year, Jacobs had injured his hamstring before the start of the 2017 season. He then hurt his ankle 5 weeks into that season, playing the rest of the year limited and in pain. In Alabama's crazy thrilling victory over Georgia in the national championship game, Jacobs carried the ball only 3 times for 8 yards. He finished his injury-filled sophomore season with only 284 yards on 46 carries. Then shortly after the season, he had ankle surgery. Jacobs then went on to say, "I'm not going to lie and say I didn't think about leaving. At the end of the day, I just felt like there was a reason why I came here." But with Josh Jacobs thinking about leaving the University of Alabama, his father even talked to him almost every night, hoping to convince his son to stay. He told him it's going to pay off, and he kept telling him, "You just got to believe me." With Josh Jacobs having some doubt, his junior season then started to roll around. And this is when he had his breakthrough. Basically, the do-it-all back he's always been known to be. He had 640 rushing yards and over 245 receiving yards his junior year. Kick returns back, he ran over players, juked players. He's just quick and shifty, kind of reminds me of a Le'Veon Bell type of player. And he just started to rise to the top and everyone started paying attention. He looked like a flat-out star on the Alabama offense, and it showed. He rushed for 83 yards and 2 scores while having the flu during the SEC championship. And during the next game, the Capital One Orange Bowl against Oklahoma, Jacobs went wild, running for 98 yards on 15 carries and catching 4 balls for 60 yards and 2 scores. Oh yeah, let's not forget the play where he completely ran over the Oklahoma defender and just looked mean, man. Jacobs' running style is hard and powerful. It makes him an attractive prospect, but it's his attitude that should excite the people that root for this guy. Coming from a really tough childhood and just struggling his whole life, you can just see it in the way he runs. It really does look like he's taking that anger out that he's built up from his childhood and unleashing it on the field. Jacobs even went on to say, "I run for my pops, I run for my 3-year-old son, I run for my sister and my 3 brothers, I run for everyone that has supported me." So you know he does it for everyone. With everyone knowing and Josh Jacobs even knowing, he declared for the NFL draft shortly after his great season. With Josh Jacobs being the overall best and complete back in the draft, he was taken as the first running back off the board. The Oakland Raiders selected him as the 24th overall pick in the draft, and it's just a great and crazy and unbelievable story, man. To go from homeless to living with your dad in his Suburban, he's got to sleep with a gun on him, not knowing if you're going to eat at night, your dad not eating almost every night, to making it to the NFL. It's just an unbelievable and unheard of story. And honestly and quite frankly, I really just couldn't be happier. Couldn't have gone to a better person. He's just so humble the way he carries himself. He has a great attitude. Just a fantastic person, man. How can you not root for this guy? He's just the underdog story that everyone roots for. Hey man, I'm excited to see what he can do at the next level in the NFL. I'm happy for him, happy for his family to make it out. Just an unbelievable story, like I said. I know I've said that a lot. Just crazy. I'm happy for him, and I'm rooting for him. I can't wait to see what he does. But hey man, that's about gonna wrap up this video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. If you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button. If you enjoyed this video or you like videos like this, leave a like, drop some comments. I like interacting with y'all. And hey man, I ain't gonna keep y'all here too much longer. My name is Matthew. I go by Matt LBG. Let's be great. Spam it up. And hey man, I'm out, y'all. Peace.